What if the price of your mistake was your body, your brother's life, your soul? Edward Elric, the youngest state alchemist in history, isn't just a prodigy or a hero, he's a boy who carries unbearable guilt, endures unimaginable sacrifices, and relentlessly seeks redemption. Edward's guilt begins where the story does, with the death of his mother, Trisha Elric. Unable to cope with the loss, Edward and his younger brother Alphonse commit the ultimate taboo, human transmutation. They attempt to resurrect her using alchemy, violating the natural order known as equivalent exchange, and the cost is unimaginable. But instead of bringing her back, Edward loses a leg, and Alphonse loses his entire body. In a desperate move, Edward sacrifices his arm to bind Alphonse's soul. The scene is pure psychological trauma, a child's grief twisted into arrogance and then punished with brutal consequences. But the real weight isn't just physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual. This foundational trauma sets Edward's entire psychological arc in motion. Why did he survive relatively intact while Alphonse lost his entire body? This haunts him throughout the series, internalizing the blame for Alphonse's fate. He's burdened by a moral weight no child should carry. His body is physically mutilated, his childhood stolen, and his worldview shattered. Edward doesn't just feel regret, he believes he deserves to suffer. This is not wisdom, it's coping, it's rationalization. Edward's entire worldview becomes a system of equivalent exchange, not because he believes in cosmic fairness, but because he needs the world to make sense again after his crime. To gain, something of equal value must be lost. This is predictable, it's the one rule that hasn't betrayed him. If suffering has a price, then maybe, just maybe, redemption can be earned. Ed clings to it like a prayer. As long as sacrifice balances the scales, the universe won't punish him blindly again. Unlike other shonen heroes, Ed doesn't fight to grow stronger, he fights to atone. Every gain comes with a price. After the incident, Edward becomes the youngest state alchemist in history. But this title, Fullmetal Alchemist, is both armor and cage. Edward's confidence, sarcasm, and stubbornness mask deep vulnerability. His automail arm and leg symbolize his strength, but they're also permanent reminders of failure. He overcompensates for his pain by being fiercely independent and abrasive. He refuses to let others suffer for his choices, placing an extreme moral burden on himself. He is always prioritizing others, especially his brother, over himself. Rarely he expresses his guilt outright, but it manifests in his nightmares, his self-loathing, and his obsessive pursuit of the philosopher's stone. His anger at Scar, Kimberly, and even Hohenheim stems from seeing his own flaws in them. And his refusal to rely on others, like Winry or Mustang, is a form of survivor's guilt manifesting as self-punishment. Despite his brilliance, Edward is still a traumatized child trying to fix the world, and himself. Edward's relationship with his body is a metaphor for his trauma. His automail arm and leg are not symbols of strength, they're penance. He even refuses to let Winry give him anesthetic during maintenance, as if he wants to feel the pain. This isn't just guilt, it's self-harm disguised as heroism. And worse, every time he looks at Alphonse, he sees a walking reminder of his failure. Ed's interactions with Al are filled with hidden guilt. He smiles, jokes, even fights with his brother, but it's all layered under the weight of one core belief. It's my fault. He's like this because of me. That belief drives everything. It's why he becomes a state alchemist, not for power, but for resources. It's why he endures humiliation, near-death experiences, and unbearable stress. He's not trying to save the world, he's trying to save one person, and by doing so, save himself. Let's talk about sacrifice, and not just limbs. Edward sacrifices his humanity, time and again. He kills when he must. He lies when necessary. He manipulates allies. He even threatens divine beings. Like when he tricks Ling Yao into becoming Greed's host, gambling with a life to gain intel on the philosopher's stone. But Ed is never comfortable with it. Unlike many anime protagonists, he never loses himself in power. Every time he bends his morals, it wounds him, because it feeds into the idea that he's already damned. Look at the scene with Scar early on. Scar confronts Edward with a simple, terrifying truth. You're not God. You're just a human who tried to play God. And Edward doesn't fight back. He can't. Because deep down, he agrees. Yet sacrifice is also what gives Edward his power, not magical, but emotional and moral. It's what makes people trust him, follow him, and believe in him. Unlike Father, the villain who sacrifices others for himself, Edward sacrifices himself for others. The difference is everything. Death follows Edward throughout his journey, haunting him, shaping him. The death of Niina Tucker, the tragic fusion of child and dog through her father's experiment, shatters Ed's emotional armor. And the murder of his friend and mentor, Mace Hughes, brings the war's cruelty to his doorstep. Each loss deepens Ed's emotional maturity and sense of responsibility. He suppressed his emotions, he rarely cries or grieves openly, but his silence is deafening. Rather than breaking him, these moments forge him into someone who not only reacts, but chooses to protect others. Through pain, he learns empathy, and through empathy, he finds strength. At the heart of everything Edward does, is Alphonse. His bond with his brother isn't just familial, it's redemptive. Al is the reason Edward keeps going. This is codependency. Edward's entire identity becomes tied to his brother's well-being. His guilt finds direction in love, and this transforms guilt into purpose. Edward is willing to sacrifice his life, his dreams, even his alchemy, for Alphonse. But the beauty of their relationship is mutual. Al also sacrifices for Ed, proving that healing isn't a one-way road. The Philosopher's Stone, the mythical alchemical catalyst that ignores the law of equivalent exchange. When Edward learns that the stone is created using human lives, his world fractures again. The Philosopher's Stone dangles before Edward like a devil's bargain. For a moment, you see it in his eyes, the hunger, the desperation. He could fix everything. But then the cost crashes down, the screams of the souls trapped within the stone, the lives traded for its power. Ed's hands shake. He doesn't just reject the stone, he shatters it. Because true redemption can't be bought with someone else's suffering, no matter how sweet the lie. Edward begins shifting from idealistic absolutism to a more complex, empathetic ethics. He confronts the paradox of sacrifice. Is it right to trade some lives for others? Unlike others who are tempted by power, Edward refuses the easy path. This decision deepens his humanity and sense of self. He realizes, true redemption isn't found in shortcuts, it's earned through suffering and principle. The true villain of Brotherhood, Father, is more than a threat, he's a philosophical mirror. Where Ed is racked with guilt, Father has none. Where Ed longs for human connection, Father discards it. Father seeks to transcend humanity, while Edward tries desperately to reclaim it. Their final battle isn't just good versus evil, it's about accepting limitations versus rejecting them. Father is Edward's nightmare future, a god who sacrifices others to escape pain. Ed's victory isn't just physical, it's the rejection of that path. Edward eventually makes the ultimate sacrifice. He gives up his alchemy, his one superpower, his entire identity. Why? Because he finally understands, redemption isn't about fixing the past. It's about accepting it, learning from it, and moving forward with honesty. Edward releases his obsession with fixing everything. He gives up the very thing that made him special. His breakdown when Al gets his body back shows that he has finally forgiven himself. That moment is everything Edward's journey has been building toward. From guilt to grace. From arrogance to humility. From punishment to peace. Edward Elric begins as a child who plays God, and ends as a man who understands what it means to be human. Guilt shaped him. Sacrifice defined him. Redemption freed him. His story isn't about being the strongest, the smartest, or even the noblest. It's about being human, flawed, guilty, but always striving. His greatest alchemy, transmuting guilt into growth, sacrifice into love, and pain into redemption. He teaches us that guilt doesn't have to define us. Sacrifice can be healing. And redemption is earned not through power, but through love, humility, and the courage to face the truth. He keeps moving forward. He helps others. He becomes a bridge between science and ethics, power and principle. In the end, Edward Elric loses his alchemy, but gains everything that truly matters. Edward Elric isn't perfect. He's arrogant, angry, but human. And that's why we love him. And through it all, he remains one of the most profound characters in anime, a symbol of how we fall, how we fight, and how we heal. His story asks us, what do we do with our guilt? Do we let it destroy us, or forge it into something better? Drop a comment below, Which moment do you think defined Edward the most? And what other characters should we explore next? If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more anime psychology deep dives every week. Thanks for watching, and keep questioning the cost of power.